Pragg is quite good with both moves e4 and d4. Today he chooses to play d4. Fabiano Caruana responds back with knight f6. Pawn comes up to c4 and now pawn to e6. Caruana has had a wonderful year in 2023, and in the candidates tournament he was almost close to tying for the top spot and then forcing the tie breaks, but just the unfortunate last round led him to settle for the joint second spot. Now Pragg has gone for the Catalan here, and Caruana quickly plays bishop e7. Bishop comes out to g2, so they are playing the main line. Now Fabi castles, Pragg also will castle here, so nothing new under the sun. Will Fabi go for the closed Catalan or open one with d takes c4? He takes on c4, and this is one of the most popular lines from black side in order to equalize. Pragg thinks for a bit and plays his queen to a4. He wants to capture the pawn on c4, but with queen a4, he stopped the ideas of b5 in the position. So Caruana plays pawn up to a6, queen takes c4, and now b5 is going to be played. So with this line, what happens is black is able to develop his light squared bishop very comfortably on b7, like Caruana is going to do now. But his c pawn is slightly backward, and getting c5 is not very easy. So the entire play revolves around that. Bishop f4 played. Now attacking the c7 pawn with your bishop and queen. Caruana plays knight out to c6. Now one idea is to go knight b4. The other one is to attack the pawn on d4. Rook d1 is the normal move, but Pragg goes for knight b d2. He's ready to give up the pawn on d4. And Caruana takes it. He takes the pawn on d4. Wow, this is very interesting. Pragg, he responds back by taking on d4, calmly executing his moves. Now the bishop chops off the bishop. You can take here, but then the queen would just take back the knight. So an intermezzo here. Knight takes e6, attacks the queen. You can't really defend this because of knight c7. So Caruana takes it, and now Pragg takes back the bishop. So what's the result of this small little combination that was played by Pragg? Well, the result is that Caruana is left with a weakened pawn on e6, but on the other hand, what is very important to be seen is how black pieces are tremendously active. The knight is well placed, the rook is on the open file, bishop e5 is played, and now the pawn will come up to c5. Yes, he's played it. Pawn to c5, gaining space in the position. And now Pragg brings his knight out to f3, calmly playing his moves here. White has a very small edge, I feel, because of the better structure, but now you can see how Caruana makes use of the fact that there is no pawn on f7. He wants to bring his queen out here and then put pressure on the f file. White brings rook a to d1, and Pragg now has his rook nicely trained on the d file. Caruana brings his queen to h5. So the idea now is rook takes f3, pawn takes f3, and queen takes e5. So Pragg brings his queen to e4, defends the bishop very calmly, and also now if he gets some time to play, let's say b3 and bring the bishop back, that could be interesting. So rook a d8 played. Will Pragg play like b3, just put the bishop back? Well, he actually aims for a4, opening up the a file here and trying to put some pressure on the queenside pawns. Caruana brings his queen to f5, offering a trade of queens, and Praggnanandhaa now has to simply decide what to do. I mean, trading is perhaps the best. He takes, and this improves Caruana's structure. e takes f5. But for a brief moment, you do feel that black's pieces are a little bit soft. You know, the knight on d5 is attacked once, defended once. Caruana takes back. And now what does Praggnanandhaa do? Well, he brings his rook to the open a file. He wants to get in from here and attack this way. That is his plan. And Caruana defends with rook a8. He just blocks the a file. But maybe now rook f to d1 is possible. So he brings his rook, and essentially Pragg is saying that I want to take your rook and then take the knight, and if you want to avoid it and if you take the rook, then my rook gets the open file. So Caruana simply moves his knight back to f6, and the knight is looking at this juicy e4 square to settle down. Pragg plays his pawn to b3. The move does two things. One is that it kind of stops these two pawns from advancing. The second is the rook is now defended. So after knight comes to e4, now Pragg no longer has to worry about his rook on a1 and can actually move his rook to the 7th rank. And he does it. He brings his rook into the camp of black. White's advantage right now is not huge, but it is definitely important for black to remain accurate. Bishop f6 is played. Pragg takes on f6. Now knight takes back is the normal move here. He takes, he attacks the rook. So now both rooks are kind of undefended for white. So rook takes a8 has to be played. But after rook takes a8, Fabiano has an option. He can take on a8. He can also take on d7. But then maybe Pragg would play rook a7 and keep the active rook. So after rook a8, he takes back the rook on a8. Look at the times on the clock. We are on move 27. Pragg has 56 minutes. Caruana has 58 minutes. So a lot of time for both the players. Pragg goes rook to c7 and now attacks the pawn on c5. So Fabiano has to defend it. He goes knight e4. Truth be told, such positions 9 out of 10 times would end in draws. But you know, there's a thing about Pragg, and he's spoken about this in various interviews. He goes knight e5. If rook comes down, here's a checkmate here. He's spoken about it, that he wants to nowadays play out the games till the very end. Just keep fighting, and who knows what will happen. And I think this is something that he's inspired by Nodirbek Abdusattorov. The knight comes back to d3, now putting pressure here. So Caruana's pawns are now a little bit soft. How does he defend all of them? Well, he has to engage in counter attack. He goes knight d2 and he's attacking b3. So if you take here, then the rook comes in, and I think this is an interesting position. So Pragg actually takes it with his rook, and he's attacking the pawn on b5 and the pawn on f5. Both these pawns are under attack. So knight takes on b3, and what is going to happen now is Caruana is going to lose both these pawns on b5 and f5. Pragg takes on f5, and he's going to win the pawn on e2. So in that way, we are going to reach a position where 3 pawns versus 2 on one side. One can say that there are minimal chances to win there. Rook d5 played by Pragg first, and now Fabi takes on e2, and Pragg captures rook takes